HTLA Radio 1. You will lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. We will add your distinctiveness, your advertisers, and your sponsors to our own. Resistance is futile.
Okay, today is Monday, September 29th, 2014, and if you can hear me, then you are listening to Straight Talk with your host, this intellectual birthday girl tomorrow, Kate Taylor, and her co-host, the driven, the dedicated, the deliciously demanding Christopher Crash Jesus Taylor.
Yes.
That would be you, that's right. This is HTLA Radio 1, the world's best talk radio on the world's first all brilliantly exceptional, all utterly original talk entertainment programming ever.
Oh, yeah.
I love that part. Straight Talk in full swing now and racking up the resenters left and right, too. Welcomes you to its sexy new home on the interweave, www.htlaradio1.com. That's the number one. Just like us. Even the Donald enjoys what we have to say, it seems. Mm-hmm. And if you follow my hubby here on Twitter or Facebook, you know what I'm talking straight about. As of this broadcast, we've gotten our season interviews underway for the really awesome guests we're going to be bringing you this season. And if you've been keeping up with the Taylors, you'll know that in addition to finally finalizing our move from the city to the acreage we so desperately needed to expand, we're launching a new show this week. And 2 more in the weeks to come. Isn't that right, Daddy?
That's right, Missy. Our new show, Home Talk, is going to be appearing. The new Home Talk show is going to be premiering, thank you, on Thursday night, only here on HTLA Radio 1.
That's right. Well, it's going to be appearing on the website, too, so see, you weren't that far off.
Okay.
It's going to be premiering on audio and appearing on the web. So there you go. That was good.
Excellent.
You came up with a new word.
I did.
Preparing.
All by myself.
I'm going to use that now. It's going to be preparing. That's right. So keep your iTunes, tablets, and browsers locked in with us as all of our shows resume. And as the celebrity guests are starting, the notable noteworthies are taking note. And, oh yes, that more powerful social impact that I've been talking about, well, it seems to be starting because we're getting our first batches of dissenters for the season already.
That's right, Kate. It seems that some of our listeners want us to get off our anti-PC and pro-traditionalism rhetoric and see us work with society instead of against it. As I mentioned in my response to them, that would be tantamount to staying complicit in all things I feel are wrong with society as I see it. And I will never do that.
No, true enough, Crash Daddy. And I replied too, work with society. Take a look out your window, folks. Turn on your televisions.
Yeah.
What about this society should I work with exactly? Sorry, but political correctness and anti-traditionalism are the very reasons this society has become as decrepit as it has. And all I'd like to do with society as I see it today is wipe it clean and start over with the traditions that worked thousands of years ago and stayed working until 40 years ago. Coincidentally, when society went to hell in a handbasket. Funny that. Mm-hmm. But on to the solution to the starry state of affairs. What can you tell me about what HTLA Radio 1 has going on?
Yes, I can, my lovely kitty. We set the world straight on Straight Talk Monday nights, of course, as you all know. Then I follow up with Crash Talk, opinionating reality check on Tuesday nights there.
Yeah, Crash Bang Crash Talk.
Mm-hmm. On Wednesdays, it's all industry all the time, as we start the night with Real Talk, a film analysis show on a genre of its own, hosted by my super screenwriting wife here. Then on to Film 101, Production Defined. And this week we have our first rare and illuminating interview with John Miller from Hive Lighting of Los Angeles. As we mentioned earlier, don't miss the premiere episode of Kate Taylor's Home Talk on Thursday. And while I will be bringing up your rear on that show, it's all about showcasing your design know-how and teaching our listeners how to eat, entertain, and style their life fierce too. So why don't you tell us more about that then, Kate?
I will. I'd be delighted to. Thank you. Well, it's a new premise than we've ever done before, but it'll stay true to the talk structure we created for HTLA Radio 1. Each week we'll focus on a different area of living. Maybe it's home repair or renovation. Maybe it's decorating and entertaining for the holidays, because the holidays are coming. That's going to be a big, huge segment, especially for the website. Or maybe it's just how to revel in your space a little bit more. You know, because we all deserve to feel like home is our sanctuary and special place, right?
Yeah.
We'll have celebrity chefs, designers, home experts, and the like. They're going to come. They're going to talk to us about doing it right and really enjoying our weekend projects, too. I mean, gosh, how many weekend warriors every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. rolls around and you hear the skill saws in the neighborhood and the blowers and all the other things, right? But in addition, our station site, you know, on the website, you'll be able to find detailed instructions on whatever we discuss on the show, as well as resources and tools to do more than home improvement, to do living improvement.
I've got to say, I'm more excited about the development of this show than I've been in a while. I can't wait for our production meetings this week, actually. But more straight to the point, little straight talk thing there. What about tonight's show?
Oh, yes. Well, as only we can do it. We're going to be straight talking the heck out of this yes means yes bill passed in California this week, as well as some other related to the issue topics, you know, date rape, consent in general, what happened to CeeLo Green, you know, and how a movement of both women and men being brainwashed into thinking they can't take care of themselves without bills and laws being passed for permission to pass gas is leading to the destruction of the strength of a nation.
Yeah, well, heady and heavy stuff for sure.
Yes, sir, it is. Hey, if someone doesn't talk about this stuff in opposition, well, who will? People have to understand that they don't have to get swept away in the sea of public opinion, especially if that public opinion goes against the very wiring we, by nature, are beholden to obey.
Well, opening minds is definitely something you have a knack for, my gratitude.
Well, thank you. I hope so. I really do. But before we get usual, I'm rolling here as usual. What is it today? Is Mercury retrograde or something? I swear. It's not. I'm sure it's not. But it sure feels like it is. Well, you are up, my fine sir. Station business, if you please.
All righty. Well, tonight's edition of Straight Talk is brought to you by the fine folks at Captain Morgan Rum.
Ooh, yummy.
Tasty, tasty. Snickers candy bars.
Even better.
Even better.
Chocolate and rum.
And a little of the Direct TV.
Oh, okay.
I know you're thrilled.
I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled.
And as always, Fierce Kitty Omnimedia.
Yeah.
To keep up with all the news and happenings, visit for yourself at HTLA1.com.
That's right. And please continue to bear with us as we continue to update the site with all the best of the years of HTLA for you every day.
That's right. Bookmark the site for exclusive notifications and access to what's rolling next for us, the Taylors, and for all the additional content that will be coming for our newly developed shows. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter. For the station, it's at HTLA973. Or, yes,
HTLA.
at HTLA Radio, the number 1.
Right.
From yours truly, it's Crash Talkin'. And for the scintillectual wife here, yes, the personal Twitter for her is at Fierce Kitty Kate.
Yes, you got it. Our monthly newsletter is coming soon, too, and it will list all of our upcoming topics and guests for each show that month, so you can plan to join us for your favorites. That's really going to be something great. So, you know, if you subscribe, then in the beginning of the month, you're going to get a newsletter listing all the topics for all the shows that month, as well as any guests and things. So you can, you know, if it's a particular person or home talk, for instance, a particular project you're interested in, you'll be able to know when that show's going to air, and you can be a part of it and mark it and come and listen to it.
All right, there you go. Right. And finally, remember to join us here every week, because you never know who's going to show up on Straight Talk to talk straight. Now, before we roll, it's time to say it.
Oh, my favorite part. Okay. Tonight's show is
powered by Procast.
Oh, yeah. All right. There we go. That was good. Second time's a charm. Yeah. That's what they say. All right. So tonight we're doing a show that, like I said, brings to mind the issue of the day about, well, what's the issue of the day all the time on Straight Talk? The world that we live in. And, well, not the world, but this country in particular. The rest of the world still seems to have its head kind of together. But
yeah, for the most part, I'd say, yep.
Just sometimes when you see the news, it's just so idiotic and ridiculous. There's so many, to me, especially more important things than this stupid stuff that goes on and on. But today we're going to talk about, like I said, in California, Governor Jerry Brown just enacted the yes means yes law. So apparently the no means no law wasn't good enough because we had one of those. We did. And that's, though, being blamed for bringing ambiguity to sexual assault cases. So no meaning no wasn't good enough. We had to enact a yes means yes law,
I'm confused.
Yeah.
I know it should be simple. It's just yes and no, but what?
Okay. Well, lack of protest doesn't mean consent. Right?
Lack of protest.
Right. Doesn't mean consent. So, in other words, if you talk a chick into having sex with you, apparently you can be charged with rape now because, she went along with it. She didn't protest, but that really didn't mean consent. So that just takes courting out of the equation forever for everybody. Because that's the best part of teenage boys' years is trying to talk their way into girls' pants. I mean, that's just the nature of life.
Right.
So if they do that now, though, even if she goes along with it and it's not rape and whatever, and what would be considered consensual in our generation to you and I, this poor SOB can be charged with rape now. Because apparently, under the yes means yes law, affirmative consent must be ongoing throughout a sexual activity and can be revoked at any time.
So the women have to keep going, oh, yes, oh, yes.
It's funny. That was the first thing I thought of, too. Does that count?
Really? Does that? Yeah.
Right? But no, apparently, and a lot of people are kind of up in arms because they're saying, every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes, do I have to ask, is this still okay? Do you want to stop? Or, what does that mean exactly?
What the hell?
It's just really stupid. And
so
okay.
So what? This is actually a criminal law or a civil law?
It's a criminal law. This is the yes means yes law, just like the no means no law.
So, and I'm assuming it's specifically for women.
Well, right. It's specifically, actually, it's more targeted toward the issue of date rape and statutory rape and drug rape. It's for the colleges mostly. It started because of all the date rape and and the hypnol rapes in college.
Okay, well, if you're under the influence, you're not giving consent anyway, no matter what you say.
Well, that's true, too. I mean, the whole stupid thing is ambiguous to begin with, in my opinion.
But then, of course, that kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like that, one person in a couple finds out the other one was cheating on them. They go and confront them about it, and the other person uses the excuse, well, I was drunk.
Right.
You still remember it.
Oh, sure.
But you're using the fact that you had alcohol to cover your...
kind of mitigate it.
Your action.
Yeah.
So, but now, this thing here...
Right, but this makes it even... There people are saying it's going to... The burden on the accused to now prove that it was consensual is overwhelming.
Well, there's no way.
It's just, yeah.
You can't. It's a lose-lose law.
Well, she said yes, but, she can say, yeah, I agreed to it, but, well, he really sucked, so I said stop. And
he had a small penis. So.
Right? Where is it going to end, though?
So did they state what the sentences would be?
Not at all. I guess it depends upon the circumstances. But like I said...
It depends upon the circumcision. There you go.
Right. This is mostly targeted. I mean, what he also said towards the end of this enactment was that, the state of California won't tolerate rape on its campuses. So like I said, it's more towards, date rape and things like that.
I think California's got a heck of a lot more to worry about than this.
I think we all have a lot more to worry about than this. And it's like we were discussing when I first heard this today. When I was growing up, well, and it goes back to the issues of traditionalism, how funny that, right? But I had two parents. My mother warned me about things, and taught me things that I should do to be able to protect myself in a setting like that, at a frat party or whatever it was.
Right, yeah.
And my father also taught me about things that boys will do and try to do because he knows he did them all.
Sure.
Right?
It's natural.
That's right. I had both parents. I had all my bases covered.
Yeah.
And, I went to a party and I never accepted a drink that, I didn't open the bottle or the can myself. I didn't go upstairs to a room with a boy, in a party.
Or 6 boys.
Well, because there were 5 others waiting in the room, right, when you get up there, duh. So, I always knew these things to do to protect myself. I never let myself get so drunk or so, out of it that I would be taken advantage of.
Right.
These are just things that, as a girl. Well, I guess it also depends on what kind of girl you are and what kind of parents you have and things like that.
Well, of course it would.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it, the mother gives you this information and the father gives you this information. And both of these, I guess, advice standpoints that you get with a mom and a dad is from the both sexes. You get the female side of it and you get the male side of it. And based on what? Experience.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And wiring, and boys are going to try this, and it doesn't matter. They'll tell you they love you. They'll do this, they'll do that. And, you keep these things in your head if you're smart.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why, thankfully, none of that stuff ever happened to me. So,
right.
Because I protected myself. I never was the victim type. They knew better. I didn't put it out there like that, right?
Yeah.
So, if this kind of stuff happens, I'm not going to sit here and get slammed because they say, well, you're saying it's the girl's fault she gets raped. Well, no, I'm not saying that, okay. Especially not in the case of violent stranger assault, where she's grabbed in an alley and blah, blah, blah.
But that has nothing to do with, yes, let's go have sex.
Right.
To,
this is something different. This is just using your head. This is being smart. In a case like this, if you're on college campus, you're there to study and go to school. And if you go to a party and you get wasted and you wake up the next morning, what the hell happened? Sorry, that is your fault.
Mm-hmm.
You could not take that first drink. You could not go to the party. There's things that you could not do to prevent that situation.
Absolutely.
And there's no right in the world that says, stupidity is a defense. Where is stupidity a defense?
Well, and my whole problem with this, now that you bring up defense, is if this charge was ever levied against me or anybody,
right?
You can't defend yourself.
No.
So what I'd like to know is how this was actually accepted into law, because the law books pretty much dictate in order to have a charge, there has to be a defense. You can't have charges that are just unilateral and summary and, well, he did this and I said that, but later on I changed my mind.
Why?
He's guilty.
We had the no means no law that's been on the books for 20 years now, right? And
yeah, but who started that?
Well, these are all the feminists.
All right.
Okay. So because girls that are real feminine girls, know that if you're dumb enough to put yourself in that situation, it's your fault. You don't talk about it. You just move on.
Right.
That's it. That's the kind of... If anything like that had ever happened to me, at that age growing up, my first thoughts wouldn't be to prosecute. It would be like, holy crap, how could I have been so stupid to put myself in that situation after everything I knew?
But you see, you come from a mom and a dad, and you actually have a moral substance to you where you can actually discern that mistake and realize it's your own mistake and you need to deal with it and carry on.
Exactly. And sure, the guy should have not been, but if we don't raise boys to be men and gentlemen, how are they supposed to know how to treat women too?
Well, they won't. They'll just grow up living in fear. They won't even talk to women.
But not only that, I mean, boys are always going to be boys, and they're always going to be aggressive.
Right.
And these things are going to continue to happen, especially at that age, because that's the age and stage of development where we're in that conquering phase.
Right.
And we go out and we conquer everything. We conquer college. We conquer women. We conquer our careers. We do these things. So those things are going to happen. And then you get a bunch of boys together, and that's it. It's that testosterone mob mentality, like all those stories that we've heard about.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. That's going to continue whether feminists change the rules completely or not. This is just nature. Right? So we have to, raise boys to be real men and not do that sort of thing to women, that they feel confident enough about themselves as men that they don't have to do that sort of thing.
Right.
Right? And we have to teach girls that they have to respect themselves enough not to put themselves in those precarious situations, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but we'll answer your how'd this get onto law when we come back, because we have to take our first commercial break. Right?
We do.
We do?
We do.
Good. Okay, good. That was good.
What? Yes, we do, and you are right. And look at that, you're urging me to take the commercial break for a change. So we'll be back in just a few minutes, gang.
So do you guys think being fast is better than being slow?
Yes! It's better to be fast, to not be bitten by a werewolf, and then you'll be turned into one, and you'll have to stay in, and then you'll have to get shade because you'll be too hot, and then you're like, which means I wish I was back to a human.
What?
It's not complicated. Faster is better. And AT&T is the nation's fastest 4G LTE network for your iPhone 5.
The world is facing one of the biggest crises in the history of history. Girls are getting hotter and hotter. This is causing guys to lose their cool. It's happening everywhere. That's why the people at Axe have developed the new Axe Chill collection. It helps guys keep their cool before it's too late. Girls are getting hotter. Keep your cool with the new Chill collection from Axe.
Have I got a treat for you? New clean whipped cream foundation from CoverGirl. A delicious new recipe whipped up by Clean Makeup. They took their clean, fresh foundation, added a dash of hydration, then whipped it to smooth, matte perfection. Finally, a non-drying whip that wears like a dream. What a treat from Clean. New clean whipped cream from easy, breezy, beautiful CoverGirl.
No one just hands you the title, most advanced technology in its class. It needs to be earned. Earned with smart beam headlamps. Earned with vented temperature control seats. Earned with an 8.4-inch touchscreen. And if you're driving one, you know what it means to earn something.
When your cable company keeps you on hold, you get angry. When you get angry, you go blow off steam. When you go blow off steam, accidents happen. When accidents happen, you get an eye patch. When you get an eye patch, people think you're tough. When people think you're tough, people want to see how tough. And when people want to see how tough, you wake up in a roadside ditch. Don't wake up in a roadside ditch. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
And we're back. You are listening to Straight Talk with Kate and Crash on HTLA Radio1.com. Isn't that sexy? I like that.
I do. That's the theme for our webisodes, which will be coming back soon. Yes. Yes.
Make it fly.
We
Yep.
are. Because, we've moved. And we're moving.
We're moving.
We moved and we're moving, and it's an arduous process, really, though.
Get a move on.
Yeah.
Well, we are back, and you are listening to, of course, Monday Night's Straight Talk with Kate and Crash on HTLA Radio 1 New York. Uh-huh. And tonight we are talking about...
As always, feminism and the destruction of the universe.
Yeah, I, for one, will be glad when we get to some guest interviews again. That will be...
Me too. I've already got some lined up, some really good ones.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
We've got a lot of proponents. But, here's the difficult thing. And we're going to talk about this now, too. In the next segment, actually, we're going to talk about it. But, about prejudicial belief and public opinion and all these things and how dangerous it is. But,
right.
Just in the case where we used to have a friend, well, used to be a friend, and he was a huge Democrat, right? And it didn't matter if you put the facts in his face and showed, and even if the person that he was, talking for admitted himself that he screwed up and this, then just completely refused to believe reality and the facts.
Yeah, the thing about him and the thing about,
But he was a classic example of prejudicial belief and the power of defending that to the death.
Sure, absolutely. But really, if you affiliate yourself with a political party, You just keep, putting out that party line. It doesn't matter what the individuals do.
I agree most people do, but I don't.
Oh, well, okay. I guess,
I'm a Republican,
maybe there's
but I voted for Barack, and I will vote for whomever I feel is best for that office, that position at the time. I won't stick to my particular party if I don't believe the candidate's right.
Right. Yeah,
So,
truly.
But that's just me.
But now, public opinion, to me...
Okay, well, we're going to do that in the next segment.
Oh, that's
Remember,
right.
I mixed them up.
That's
That was
right.
my bad.
Your
but
bad.
It's my birthday. I'm allowed. So, yes. Right, so we were talking about the yes means yes law. And before we went to break, you had asked, how did it get on the books and da-da-da. And I had started to explain, but then it was time for break. So, now, we've had the no means no law on the books for a long time now. And that just simply defined that, if the victim protested or said no, that no meant no, and that the person had to stop, and if they didn't, they were guilty of rape. Pretty simple, right? And it was a lot easier for the defendant to prove that they said no, because if there was evidence of it, it was just a matter of the judge or the jury believing her story.
Well, see, I have a problem with that because, to my understanding, rape isn't a sexual crime. It's not about yes or no. It's about violence.
No, but guess what? Here's a funny thing. Guess what? Rape is a sexual crime. And guess who came up with the idea that rape is not a sexual crime, but it's a crime of power?
Oh, I don't know. The feminists?
Yes. Yes. In a way that is true, absolutely. But rape is absolutely a sexual crime.
Well, I thought psychologically it was proven to be a violent crime.
Well, it is a violent crime. Yeah, of course it's a violent crime.
Well, it depends on how you have
but
sex.
It's a sexual... well, that's true. Like, a lot of rapes we would think are pretty freaking mild compared to our sex life.
Might be like Barry White, maybe.
Yeah, but they also could be just like, pretty generic and vanilla compared to our regular Tuesday night.
Well, most likely, yeah.
Right. But that's a matter of perception, right? But no, it's always motivated sexually, or else there wouldn't be ejaculation.
Well, there isn't always, though, in rapes.
No, there almost always is in rapes. Yes, but not always in sexual, sadistic murder.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about rape. We're not talking about serial killer.
I stand corrected.
Murder. That's right. So rape is a sexual crime. Sure, there's an element of power and control, too. But that's part of the sexual fantasy for the perpetrator.
Right.
So hence, it's a sex crime. There's a reason there's a sex crimes unit.
That's true.
Okay, so thank you. But the feminists are the one that came up, well, it's just a crime of power, they just want power. No, they just want to have sex. You said no, and they just want to anyway. And why is that? You suppress that innate, natural desire, as twisted as it might be, as unethical or immoral or disagreeable to us normal folk as it might be.
As just plain old caveman as it might be.
Well, that's true, too. Right, but we've become civilized to the point. I can agree with that level of civilization that there should at least be, consensual non-consent, if you want to go that route, right? So there's even levels of consent. Now there's dubious consent. They call it dubcon, and that's, those are the fetishists that, like to play that kind of cat and mouse kind of game.
Is that I'm confused. I'm not at all hip anymore. Does that mean dubstep is dubious step? Is it like some badass dancing?
I don't know. Isn't that weird? I asked myself that same question the first time I heard that. But then you have your straight non-con, your consensual non-con, and that's like kind of what S&M is.
All these things you're talking about are different human sexual kinks.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Right. But that's all normal and healthy sex because it's consensual between the two parties first.
Right.
Right, whereas rape isn't.
Unless now she says, I didn't really mean yes.
Well, then, see, that's not healthy.
And you can't defend against that.
Well, you can. There's got to be evidence, too. Even in the case of the no means no, it had to be backed up by, when you do a rape kit, you can tell there's swelling, there's tearing, there's things like that.
If she says yes and you stick it in, there's going to be swelling and tearing and ejaculate and the whole 9 yards.
I know, but wait, I'll teach you a little bit about human female anatomy. If it's consensual, even if it's non-consent and that's the fantasy, there's going to be lubrication. She's going to be aroused. So the tearing and the abrasions won't be like if she was totally not aroused and it was an actual violent crime. There would be no arousal. There would be no lubrication whatsoever. So that's how they can tell. There is ways that you can tell.
Okay.
So, and that's one of the ways. And that's part of it. And, it's her history will come into play and her story and things like that. So No Means No made it a lot easier, in a way, for the accused to defend against it because there had to be that circumstantial evidence. And it was he said, she said. Right. Now it's just she said. There is no he said anymore. Because she has the right to get undressed and get in his bed and start to have sex and say no. And then he can go to jail for rape. That's what yes means It has to be an ongoing, and I believe the terms were also enthusiastic and engaging yes to the sexual activity. Ongoing enthusiasm and engagement.
Wow, that opens up a whole lot of fun skits.
It certainly does, but not so much fun when we see the prisons getting fuller and fuller and fuller and the courts getting fuller and fuller.
Well, this is probably the attempt to even up the 89% black versus the 11% white and Hispanic.
Well, that's probably true because most of these date rapes in colleges, you actually have to be in college and do all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, there you go.
Well, no, you didn't.
But, no, I didn't. But I did because, reality is reality. I didn't make up the numbers.
No.
I didn't make up the numbers. I didn't create, this environment that we live in where, there are certain groups that are certain ways in doing certain things. I didn't make that up.
No.
I just call it like I see it, and that's it. So getting back to that, CeeLo Green,
yes.
actually, he pled no contest for slipping a chick ecstasy at a party some months ago, right?
Well, okay. What's that?
To me, that's no bigs. You go to a party with CeeLo Green. What do you think's going to happen? This goes back to my...
Thanks for the $40 drop ecstasy. Move on.
This is what I was talking about earlier.
What, did he have sex with her or something?
He wasn't charged. There wasn't an... Oh, here's the kicker, and I love this. The prosecutor admitted there wasn't enough evidence to charge him with rape. So all he did by making him plead no contest was open the door to a civil suit so this chick can get money. That's it. That's all.
I see.
But, like I said, there should never, ever, ever, ever be any kind of charges against any celebrities or anything. If you walk in that door with that person, you should know better. I know better. I can't tell you how many parties and things like that I was when I knew the minute I walked in the door. If I let myself in that room, if I let myself take that or accept that or, smoke that joint, God knows what it was laced with, I was taking my own, I was risking it myself.
Sure.
And if something happened to me as a result of that, it was no one's fault but my own.
True.
I couldn't in good conscience bring charges against somebody that did something to me when I know it was my fault for putting myself in that position.
That'll make you a heck of a popular party girl.
Yeah, but do you know what I'm saying though?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But what I've noticed about society in the last 20 or so odd years is nobody wants to take responsibility for themselves.
No,
and
that brings way to the later segment.
Admit that they did something wrong,
right.
And no.
So stupidity's a defense now.
Well, it's not stupidity. It's just shirking responsibility.
It's irresponsibility.
For yourself, yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I hate to say it, I taught Gia, I taught her not to do those things. I taught her, if she's ever in a situation with blah, 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 what to do. You know what I mean? And she knows that. And if she's going to ignore my counsel and do those things anyway, she's risking her own personal safety and her own virtue, et cetera, et cetera.
I think parents' roles, by and large, in any regard to their children, is to, have them informed.
Right. Teach them, educate them, right?
Sure.
But then you got to send them out in the world, and it's up to them to listen to you or not, right?
Well, and it's going to be on them ultimately, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So then why do they get the gall to then blame the celebrity who just,
No idea.
Yeah.
No.
You brought the Big Mac. All they did was unwrap it. That's it. So anyway, he pled no contest to this. But here's the kicker, and this is what really kills me. So he went on Twitter and he's like, it's only rape if the person's conscious, right? Which, in a roundabout, circular way, he's got a point, because what he was saying was, they're not really with you to begin with if they're not conscious, So how can they say, well, I was with him and he did that? If they're not conscious, they're not with you anyway. And that was his logic. Whether he was being serious or whether he was being facetious is completely irrelevant. He can, where did freedom of speech go? Does it not apply to Twitter? Because, we can't say what we want anymore without fear of losing everything. His reality show was canceled. Up in arms, all these things now. He's losing income. He's losing, I'm just completely and totally sickened by this society of first of all, it used to be survival of the fittest, and you had to be, strong and competitive to just even get anywhere in life.
And smart.
Right. And now we've cut all that out. We've, did the curve and affirmative action and all this stuff. And here you can, you're all right for that. And we'll let you slide with that. And, nobody has to work for anything anymore. Nobody has to be better, train harder, get smarter, do the work anymore to achieve anything.
No.
You know what I mean? But now we can't even say the things that we want to say, without fear of reprisals, except us. So, because we say it and we don't, that's it.
And you are tuned to HTLA Reprisal Radio.
That's right. Non-reprisal radio. That's right. But, it's just ridiculous. Since when are we not allowed to say? So what we say is stupid and idiotic. So people don't agree with it. Some people might find it appalling. Some people might find it heinous and horrible. Well,
I got to say, for the most part, pretty much any of my shows, with the exception of Film 101, my opinions, I hope they actually do go out and offend, because it's a little bit of payback. Because every time I turn around, there's another new, ridiculous, stupid law like this one that just dumbfounds me that it's even accepted into our legal system.
It's just amazing, though. But not even like the celebrities. But here's this chick who worked for some publicity firm or whatever. She was flying over to South Africa. She tweeted on her Twitter something like, well, I'll be safe. I'm white and, I won't get AIDS and I'm white and I don't do drugs or whatever it is. Something stupid like that.
Yep.
She loses her job. She loses this. Are you kidding me? We can't even talk now. We can't joke around. We can't say things. We have to be politically correct. It's a stupidity, political correctness. It's all that is a roundabout repression.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's just a complete and further repression.
It's not even so much roundabout.
Well, that's true now. It's just getting more over and more over. You're right.
Yeah.
And that's just stupid and ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
And who the hell is in it? And it's like my father used to always say, and I notice as the older I'm getting, I'm quoting more and more of the things my parents said because they're really true. They don't put food on my table.
No.
They don't put a roof over my head.
No.
So I don't give a crap what they think. If you don't like the way I think about things, then don't listen to me.
Yeah.
If you don't like that I don't like feminists, then don't listen to me. If you want to go on and be go ahead. You go on and be whatever you want. But now people are starting to actually have these kind of reprisals where, corporations are panicking and things are panicking. And we're going to get into the dangers of public opinion in our next segment and stuff like that too. So, but it's almost to the point where what do you do?
Well, see, what I do is I just stay in our studio room here, and we don't have windows here.
No, we don't.
I did an interview earlier today for an upcoming show with somebody, and they were talking about that, and how I don't even know what the weather's like outside unless I look at my little weather thing up here because I'm sequestered away in a little soundproof room. But for the most part, I don't even want to go out.
I don't either. I mean, the kids can't play with their fingers like guns anymore. Cowboys and Indians is out. All this stuff.
Heaven forbid you bring a stick to school.
Grow up, people. Grow up. You've got to be kidding me. But this is why. Nobody had parents to toughen them up. Nobody had parents to say this is the way it is and kick their ass when they didn't do the stuff they were supposed to do and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So everybody's just freaking pansies now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
he said that about me. Well, call the cops, make it, do the case, and
Well, and some of the things that even happen at schools.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Oh,
Yeah,
the bullying is so rampant. You got teenagers committing suicide, but nobody's saying anything about that.
Oh, well, you do.
The kids are calling each other and talking to each other so friggin' badly that other children are killing themselves. But yet I can't, as an adult, say that I don't like a certain group of people.
Well, I think that other law, their holes or whatever it is counts for their mouth, too.
Oh. That's perhaps true.
Yeah.
But, it's just stupid.
Yeah. It's pretty bent.
Yeah.
Anyway, it is time for us to take another
Cigarette
happy little break. Don't you touch that dial. We will be back very, very shortly here, right after this fine commercial break.
When you have cable and your picture freezes, you get irritable. When you get irritable, your work suffers. When your work suffers, the wrong man is convicted. When the wrong man is convicted, he has time to think. When he has time to think, he thinks about you a lot. And when he thinks about you a lot, your house explodes. Don't have your house explode. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
What can I get you all today? Sea salt and vinegar, smart pop butter.
I'll take caramel with a side of white cheddar.
And for you, sweetie.
The special?
Lime and salt it is.
You guys ever get tired of just eating popcorn? Because I know I never would. Awkward.
Discover all 18 flavors of Orville Redenbacher's gourmet popcorn. Simply made, passionately created.
The images you're about to see may be difficult to look at. Sadly, every year millions of innocent cakes are mangled, mistreated, and hurt. But there is something you can do. Go to the freezer section and pick up new Cool Whip frosting. It's whipped, fluffy, and perfectly sweet, so it spreads on easily, leaving cakes unharmed. Please help. Cool Whip frosting. Together, we can change the way cakes are frosted.
I always said shoes are like women. They inspire beautiful music.
But what about these?
Stilettos sound like this.
What does my fragrance inspire?
That's got soul.
My ties are beautiful. They don't need music.
Bringing the stars together. That's the magic of Macy's.
It's a stick revolution. Now skin goes shine free and naturally matte in just one step. New Fit Me Stick Foundation from Maybelline, New York. The first of its kind. Fresh gel foundation with an anti-shine powder core inside. Dissolves oil while it blends to a natural matte finish. For coverage that's fresh, flawless, one step perfect. New Fit Me Stick Foundation from Maybelline.
Stick with us.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline.
And now back to Kate and Crash on Straight Talk, HTLARadio1.com. I gotta say, that guy's got one sexy voice. Welcome back. You are listening to Straight Talk on Monday night here at HTLA Radio 1 in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was a good commercial break. That was good for me. Are you still saying yes?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. No court for me today.
I will always say yes to you.
Well, there you go.
Even when I say no.
This is recorded now.
Uh-huh.
I've got this for court.
Yeah, we're married, though. So yeah, what about that? I mean, marital rape, too. That I always laughed my butt off about marital rape. Sorry. I just, wow. I was like, marital rape, finally. What are people complaining about?
Oh.
Jesus, everybody should have a husband as vigorous and,
Well, what I've kind of come to understand from most marriages that I've ever heard of is they don't really have the right person.
No, that's true.
I don't think that people know themselves enough. I don't think that people know the other person enough. I don't think,
not even remotely.
The divorce rates are so high, but speaking from experience, now my second marriage, my first one was a mistake. I knew it when I did it. I knew it before I did it.
Yep, me too.
And, you know, that divorce rate's so high, I think, because people aren't honest with themselves.
Right.
Let alone anybody else.
Exactly.
And so, you know, you ultimately get into a situation where, you know, your significant other wants to get it on, and you're like, yes, no, you know, it's just, yeah. So you do get that a lot within the confines of marriage, as it were.
Yeah, but I would think that would preclude it. I mean, most marriages of that kind that you're talking about just are asexual. You know. So.
Yeah.
Or they just go out and find somebody else.
Well, there's that too.
Right.
But then, there's a little messy situation. You're with your wife, you're with your mistress. Your wife charges you with the yes means yes law, and so does your mistress. Ooh, double jeopardy.
Oh.
Ooh. Can you be tried for the same crime twice?
I don't know. All I know is I'm glad I don't ever have to worry about that, and you do. So there.
No.
Because we're pro-marital rape in this family.
Yes. I sit there and review. What were you saying? Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah,
we are all about the consensual non-consent here.
There we go. Well, we are back now. In this segment, we are talking.
Right, we're going to talk about things like, you know, why public opinion is so dangerous. You know, and how we're all guilty of prejudicial belief. But, you know, there comes a time, like you were just saying earlier, about knowing yourself.
Yeah.
When you have to understand that isn't the same as reality and facts. You know, right? So check this out. I'm going to quote someone now. And I know you know who it is, but I wonder how many of our listeners can know. But here's a quote. If there's anything that links the human to the divine, it's the courage to stand by a principle when everyone else rejects it.
Ah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that was Abraham Lincoln that said that.
Well, don't tell them that.
Oh.
You haven't given them time to sit there and, well, you hanging around with the wrong people. And
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, Abe Lincoln said that. And, you know.
Yeah, but, you know, who is he? He's just a, you know, misogynist bastard who lived in a time where men were pigs. And what are you talking about?
Yeah, back when it was good. Right. Well, anyway, you know, you have to realize that when it comes to public opinion, politicians frame gender and race issues for their own purposes.
Sure.
And then the public buys it. And, you know, as human beings, we're incredibly fickle. And, you know, we have incredible short-term memories and things that we're interested in and stuff like that. And, you know, when in the case of feminism, you know, it's no coincidence it happened at the height of the drug craze.
No.
You know,
no.
If feminism had come about, you know, a decade before or a decade later, wouldn't have gone anywhere.
No, absolutely not. No.
Right. Because it happened when it did. It just happened at a time when people were too stoned to fight it and there was too many other issues that they just, you know, it kind of snuck in the back door. Yeah. Right. And screwed everything up, you know. And part of the thing that affects us most is the prejudicial beliefs that we're given to, you know, and this is something we're all guilty of. We have to understand that when we're born, we're little babies. You know, we have a 2-year-old son now, so we're witnessing all this firsthand, you know, critically. It's amazing to have this vessel that we can fill with anything we want. Pretty scary, right? But our first beliefs and values come from our parents, and then our teachers, and then our peers, right? Mm-hmm. And then our community, and then finally, and maybe most powerfully, the media, right? But nowhere is any of those things coming from us internally. They're all given to us by others, right? Mm-hmm. And it's only once you grow up and you have life experience and you live through all these things that hopefully you'll get to a point in your life where you'll sit back one day, and usually it's in the midst of some tragedy when you're at the bottom of your barrel and it's time to change or die.
Right.
That you'll sit there and you'll really examine that everything you've known up to that point's really been a lie because it wasn't given to you by you. It was given to you by others.
Right.
With their own agendas. Our parents want us to do what we're supposed to and do what we're told and be easily manageable for them, so they tell us whatever they tell us. Our teachers want us to, be whatever they see we should be and keep us under control while we're at school and behave and do all these things. So they fill us with those things.
Yeah.
I didn't even put religion in there because we're not. But, you had the church in there. It's a huge
would be
thing.
huge, yeah.
There's another one, right? And then the same thing with your friends. How many of your friends really have, at 13, 14, 12, whatever, have your really good interests at heart? Oh, yeah, no, don't come shoplifting with me. You'll just get in trouble. You should stay home. Don't do it. So these are all the things that we get our beliefs from, and they form our prejudicial values. And the worst thing about these things is when you actually have beliefs that from your core come from you, you don't have a need to defend them to the death because they're true. They're real for you. And it's only your beliefs that are given to you by someone else that you feel the need to fight to the death for them. Those are the things we're most strongly, why? Because these are the things that until this point form our identity. And if we lose those, we lose bits of ourselves. And then what? What does that mean? So that's why we defend those things to the death. And the core things that we fill ourselves up with that form our substantive core, we don't feel the need to defend them because they're in there. They're ours. They belong to us.
Sure.
We know they can't be taken. So we don't have a need to vehemently fight to the death for them.
Well, and I should point out here, because some of our listeners may not understand, but that's not to say that, because Straight Talk last week was anti-PC and pro-traditionalism, and Straight Talk this week was anti-PC and pro-traditionalism, that we're doing that. What we're doing here is just drawing attention to the fact that all this attention is being drawn to these other things that are very bad for society overall.
Right, because they're bad for you individually.
Yeah.
If you're for anything like feminism or some political ideology or, I'm telling you right now, if you're for anything except your own self-development and being the best you that you can be for yourself and everybody else around you, then you're for the wrong things. Yeah, and that's just it. Because you can't go wrong if it's for your own highest good and your own self-development. Because you'll do what I just spoke about. You won't defend fake things. You won't defend things that are given to you by others. You'll actually have the time to have developed something substantial within yourself, and those things are worth developing. And you won't have a need to you don't have a need to preach. You don't have a need to spew. You don't have a need to defend to the death. Religion. People kill most for religion. Why? That's the most prejudicial belief there is.
I think it's probably also one of the most personal ones.
But why is it so personal? Because it's
it's supposed to be your relationship with God.
It's imbued with so much fear that if you lose that, there's nothing left to you. So of course you defend it to the death like nobody's business.
Yeah.
I'm seriously telling you that is the reason. If people lose their religion, oh my goodness. It's one thing to lose a relationship or to lose your family even, but you lose that and you lose your soul. You lose your immortal, divine, whatever it is, according to what they tell you.
Uh-oh.
You know what I mean? But, that's a whole nother But it's ironic that that's the thing that people kill most for still in this modern age, in this day and age. They defend that to the death. They're willing to kill for it. And it's the one thing we have absolutely no proof for.
Well, and that kind of makes me wonder, too, about how come these things like we can no longer say in our schools, God bless America, because that offends some other people.
Right.
We can't say that anymore.
No, and I'm not religious, but I grew up doing the Pledge of Allegiance and saying God bless America and all that stuff, and I wish my kids did too. They're going to make their own mind up about religion. I'm not going to prevent them nor be a prevailer for any particular whatever.
No.
I want them to have a relationship with themselves and, their spiritual side. There is something bigger than us, I believe. I just don't believe it's some old guy sitting in the clouds. That's all. What it is, I don't know.
I'm more of a believer in Dr. Dyer.
Well, that's the thing. The universal consciousness. There's a source energy that runs through everything.
I like the I am God.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, in all seriousness, because that's I think 3 words of truth right there.
That is. And even if you believe any of the religious doctrines, too, they all tell you God is within.
Mm-hmm.
God comes from you. And even Jesus himself, there's even the least among you can do what I do, because, you know, it's all about developing yourself to that highest possible level of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's whatever you believe it is. You know, some people call it God. I call it a universal source energy. You know, you call it your relationship to your own inner consciousness, whatever that is. You know, and we're all right. None of us are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And the beauty is I don't have to worry about putting money in the collection plate.
Well, is that my collection plate?
Yes, the shopping fund collection plate.
No, but seriously, and this all is tied into what we are talking about today and what we always talk about in Straight Talk, because, you know, these core things that if you allow it, you know, all the people that write us and say, well, get off your anti-PC thing. Don't you see what political correctness is? It's just another machination to keep you suppressed and following that prejudicial ideology that's being given to you by somebody else.
And the funny thing is that everybody that's opened their mouth to me about you know, these initiatives that we've voiced on this show, they're all kind of victims of it themselves in one way or another.
Sure.
You know, there's some facet of their life that sooner or later, if it hasn't been done numerous times already, is going to be trodden upon with these new laws and these new oppressive, general populace, you know, PC statements.
Right.
That will not jive with even the most hardy PCer's lifestyle, in some way.
I'm sorry. And George Clooney got married this weekend. Congratulations, by the way. But that's the beginning of the end of, you know, if him, a confirmed bachelor, all of a sudden has changed, you know, overnight when they found the right person and this was it, you know, it's only a matter of time. And I say that half jokingly, but not really. Because I've been saying for a while now that the pendulum had swung so far left that there's nowhere else for it to go. It's got to start swinging back, and it is. And, you know, it is. You know, if you see the real numbers for what they are, and do a search on the internet for, you know, what did I call it? I'll be getting to that part a little later, but the delusion, the grand delusion of feminism, you know, and the grand paradox of feminism, you know. And my daughter and I fight constantly because, you know, she doesn't understand why I'm so... and I've always said feminism had its place, but to carry it on this long is what destroyed us, you know. But I'm more pro-femininity than anti-feminist, you know.
Well, and I think the bottom line ultimately is it goes to you can't have equality where there is none.
Right. Well, we're going to get some astounding facts on that matter, too, in later segments. Because, you know, it's one thing for me to say, okay, look at me. And in the meantime, I'm also a successful business person and media person, but I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm always home for dinner at 6. And, you know, so not everybody can do that.
No.
You know, and then I have the naysayers that, well, you're a working woman, you know, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but my home and my family come first. And if there was ever an interference, that would come first.
Right.
You know, if there was a choice to be made, there wouldn't be a choice.
No.
Right. And that's the difference. So.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, speaking of those lovely commercial breaks, we're coming up on one here in a minute.
Things
so we'll be
really going to heat up when we come back.
Oh yeah, we're going into the what? 1, 2, 3.
Third segment now.
Third segment. It's going to be a barn burner. Yeah. So you won't want to, you know, to swing away from that dial.
No, sir.
No.
When you have cable and can't record all your shows, you feel unhappy. When you feel unhappy, you go to happy hour. When you go to happy hour, you're up for anything. When you're up for anything, you head to a Turkish bathhouse. When you head to a Turkish bathhouse, you meet Charlie Sheen. And when you meet Charlie Sheen, you reenact scenes from Platoon with Charlie Sheen. Don't reenact scenes from Platoon with Charlie Sheen. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
I stood outside assessing the situation. I knew it could be rough in there, but how rough, there was no way to know for sure.
Hey, guys.
Daddy, it's pink!
But hey, a new house, it's a blank canvas, and we got a great one. Thanks to a really low mortgage rate from Navy Federal Credit Union.
Pink.
So she's a princess. You got a problem with that?
Hoorah! Hoorah!
4 million members, 4 million stories. Navy Federal Credit Union.
Fourth down, Coach. What do we do?
I'll tell you what we do.
I want you to go on the field. Look for anything with an O.
Let's kill them with kindness. Jimmy, I want you to make balloon animals. Tyler, make little tea cozy, something fun.
Are you okay?
We will win this for Mother Russia!
Coach, eat a Snickers.
Why is that, Chief?
You get a little loopy when you're hungry.
Better.
Better.
Now let's go for it!
Go get him, guys!
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
Down your glasses. White Rum has a new captain. Introducing the all-new Captain Morgan White Rum. 5 times distilled for a smoother taste.
You walked into the hotel as a 5. But when she saw the room, you turned into a weird 7. When she saw the rooftop pool, you went to 11. You two should probably get a room. Oh, that's right. You already did. At Planet Earth's #1 accommodation site, Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
And we're back. You are listening to Straight Talk with Kate and Crash on HTLA Radio1.com. We are back, and you are listening to us, and you are listening to the Kate and the Crash, and we are...
We are straight talking.
About the paradox of feminism.
Right. Well, you know, just in general, the whole shebang. But now in this segment especially, I have some wonderful, what I found to be wonderful things. You know, I'm always doing research. My stuff isn't just, you know, it's just like I wouldn't dispel, you know, my leanings towards you to have you just, you know, absorb more of my prejudicial diatribes and adopt them as your own. Of course, I tell you, do your own research.
Oh, sure, all the time.
You know, do this stuff for yourself and look at the facts and don't allow your, you know, current prejudicial beliefs to prevent you from seeing the truth when you find it.
No.
You know, try and be open enough to want to develop yourself and be better and have that veil removed of, you know, society wants you to stay a certain way and stay a certain place because it promotes their interests, you know, and you have to be willing to delve into that, you know, abyss and come out with the light and the truth and all that kind of good stuff.
You know, overall, looking at the whole PC thing about pretty much every angle that it operates on, about every facet of all of our lives, what I've always been confused. You know, what is the overall master, you know, benefit?
Plan of it, right.
You know.
Well, nobody's offended anymore. Well, so what?
That's not entirely true.
I mean, according to political correctness, you're politically correct so that no one group is offended.
Yes, but then nobody is themselves.
That's right, and that's not true because you're offending me by not allowing me to speak how I feel.
And ultimately, aren't we dampening individuality?
Oh, and everything, too. And it's just, you know, we're supposed to be, and Oprah started this like 2 decades ago, no kidding, our authentic selves. And we can't be our authentic selves if we can't, you know, be free to love and hate because they're the same. They come from the same line. You know, fear and love are the only 2 emotions that anything springs from.
Right.
And you need both, and you need to explore both. You know, light can't exist without dark and all that good stuff.
Well, and, you know, nobody I know has ever wandered around just full of love.
Well, okay, fair enough. True
no,
enough.
There's fear there, too.
That's
yeah.
another show, Daddy. Okay.
I'm a bad man.
I'm so happy. Okay, so now, right, but that's true, though. You know, we can't be authentic.
No.
If we're not allowed to say, if Paula Deen can't say, I'm a Southern woman and I am just not okay with this group and what they do and how they are and blah, 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 how can she be her authentic self?
See, and I think kind of, from a legal standpoint, she could sue in a class action everybody.
Why? How?
Look at what she's lost because of the PC cloud.
Right, exactly.
The collective.
But look, CeeLo Green, too, he lost his reality show.
That's probably a good thing.
Oh, wait,
Who
no,
said
it
he can
isn't.
act?
You know what? Let me tell you something right now, and I'm going to say this right now, and this is to the networks and the powers that be and all the other people there. Stop canceling people's shows because somebody said something that somebody isn't going to like because you think nobody's going to watch them. Duck Dynasty is bigger than ever, and that's not going to happen. If it's a good show and if it's something people are going to want to watch, they're going to watch it.
Sure.
Who cares? You know what? There should be.
Let's talk about non-PC Kardashian stuff for a moment, shall we?
How? What's non-PC about the Kardashians?
Everything.
Well, how so, though?
Dad ass.
Oh, well.
There's nothing PC about that girl. Are you kidding me?
Well, I don't know.
She made a name for herself with some, night vision sex tape? Really? And what was she doing? Is she going to now say, well, yes means no?
Oh, God, please don't even go there.
Come on now.
I know. There is nothing good about moral about that family or anything either. Sorry.
At least, and I got to say this, at least in the Paris Hilton sex tape, I could actually see her. Ba-dum-cha!
Yeah. And, well, you might want to, too. But
well, yeah, there's that, too.
Yeah.
There you go.
But, that's true, though. What kind of example are they setting? And now they're role models in this country?
I don't get it.
Kendall and Kylie Jenner just turned 16. She's already had plastic surgery to completely change how she looks because she wasn't as pretty as the rest of them. She's still not, in my opinion. But Kendall is a supermodel walking the runways now, and she just turned 18.
Well, at least she didn't have surgery to become a man.
Like Bruce Jenner is, I hear, transgendering to another. But we don't talk about them on here. But they're a classic example of what we don't talk about. I have more respect for the Duck Dynasty people. I just do. At least they said what they felt. They stuck to their, it might have been, that's their prejudicial beliefs. They were raised that way. That's the area they were raised in. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's not your job to convince them that being religious, racist isn't okay. It's not your job.
So many people did. All over Twitter and all over Facebook and all over the networks.
Why?
I don't know.
Who cares? More power to them if that's how they want to be. More power to Paula Deen for staying true to her Southern roots for how many
and so here's this. If it's not okay for Duck Dynasty, those guys and ladies, because they have families, to say and do what they said and did, how come it's okay for the Westboro Baptist Church to go and...
Listen, the Duck Dynasty is everywhere now. They got huge contracts. Their stuff's in Walmart selling like hotcakes. The show is still on. It didn't stop them.
No.
Finally, I was so proud. I don't know if he apologized or not. I hope he didn't. I really do.
No, I don't believe he did.
But, I think he might have, and that's the only reason the network kept him on. But they suspended him for 2 weeks or something like that. But, people wake up. That's just a placation. Come on. Those people in those boardrooms, they're making tons of money. You really think they're not sitting around making those same racial jokes and those same things that the Duck Dynasty people are?
Okay, well, if we're talking about an entertainment value here, where was the big PC outrage at Denzel Washington being the equalizer?
Oh, no, there's going to be a sequel now. It's his new franchise.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. You can make fun of me. I'm English and Irish, and, what are you going to say about me? But if you did, do you think I'd care?
No. See, that's the thing I don't understand about this whole racism thing and this whole culture thing. Like,
we don't walk around.
I'm Irish. I'm supposed to be known for just running around drinking everything and chasing everything with a skirt.
No, I'm beating people up too.
Oh, right, and the fighting thing, right? Do I take offense to any of that? No.
Do we change Notre Dame from the fighting Irish? Where's the protest for that?
But here's the real kicker. Am I that? No.
No, of course not.
Right? So people say people say that about my nationality and cultural background.
Right.
Even though that's not me.
No, but stereotypically it's true and we get that. And that's
what?
Cool.
And what? I accept it and just move on. I don't care. So what?
I mean, we can tell Irish jokes with the best of them. What is the point? I just don't get it.
Where does all the offense come from, and where does the bandwagon jumping happen? Are we really that guilty and upset over slavery?
No, what it is people have no substantive core of their own. So they have to leap on whatever it is that passes them by that they can participate in to make themselves feel important. And that's it.
Wow.
Or else you wouldn't have all the ranting and raving on Twitter.
No.
Right. It's all just to make themselves feel important, feel like a part of something, feel like they belong. Everybody can belong to the PC movement, so they do.
Yeah. Well, we got about another 10 minutes in this segment and then our closing segment, so we better move on to some other stuff you got.
Segment. I got 3 more segments. What are you talking about? Okay. Anyway, so let's talk about the paradox of feminism. Let me back up some of the things that I say now with actual academically researched facts.
Oh, no.
And first of all, let's talk about the supreme paradox of feminism. And this goes true to the STS and all that other kind of stuff.
Okay.
Excuse me. That equal, which is what the feminists want, right?
Apparently, that's the word on the street.
That means you can take care of yourself. So stop the damn double standard. You want to be equal, stop asking the government to protect you and do all this kind of stuff. You want to be a big bad feminist and all that stuff, then say no and have your no mean the same thing as if a man would say no.
Oh, and no child support anymore.
Yeah, you don't need that. You're equal.
Oh, and no financial abuse laws anymore.
No alimony. You don't need that. You can take care of yourself. This is the double standard, and everybody has fallen for this crap.
Not me.
Well, no, not us, because we don't subscribe to that lifestyle. But what I'm saying is, feminists have brainwashed over the last 30 years everybody to think that, oh, this is new and this is needed because women need this. All that is a way to get away with everything and get away with the double standard. Okay, so anyway, consider the paradox of feminism itself. A, feminism is itself oppressive. This is seen in the way that feminists attack those who do not agree with them. Feminists use the same methods of subordination, oppression, and marginalization that they find so hateful when exercised by men in patriarchal societies. Also, were elective abortions the feminist single issue when it came about in the 70s, the movement would have never gotten off the ground.
Well, yeah, and you said that earlier.
And it never would have. Okay, B. Feminism is unnatural to the physiological makeup of both men and women. By demeaning women who choose to be the support system for their husbands and children, by forcing men to suppress their assertive, competitive nature in an effort to appease the new rules of working with women, listen to this, in occupations and activities where assertiveness, even aggression, and or competition is required to be successful causes untold psychological, emotional, and subsequent physical deterioration. Okay, let me explain that to you in simpler terms. Women in the military. In the military, you have to be aggressive. You have to be this. You got to be vicious. You got to be a killer. You got to be all. There is no GD place for sensitivity training because some girl's got her period on the battlefield in the military.
No.
By forcing them to do that, you're taking from them the ability to be the most effective soldiers they can be.
Absolutely.
And be the killing machines that they need to be. Same thing in the high dog world of high finance and all that other kind of stuff.
Interesting point, okay, about the military thing that you were just talking about. Here's something. Here's a little food for thought, gang. It's almost 2015 now. Battlefields aren't PC. They're not nice places to be.
No.
Women in the military doesn't work because Delta Force troopers in Vietnam in 1971, and Time magazine has the pictures to prove this, were wearing Vietnamese women and children's heads on their belts in the jungle. Now, anybody out there, present to me a woman in the that can handle that shit and not make some new big crisis thing that has to be dealt with socially.
Oh, please. We're in the
It's
era
a
where...
battlefield.
Yeah, I know. But look what they did about, no, we shouldn't have tortured the prisoners and did the things that we did to them. But you know what? This is war. Since when does that have to be? We're even PCing, prisoners. That sort of thing. I mean, this is what I mean. People, you're living in a fantasy world if you think that you can Hollywoodize and varnish over the reality of life. It's just unimaginable.
And the absolute what am I trying to say? The absolute disassociation of every life being important. Because look at 9/11. 3,000 people we lost that one frickin' day. It wasn't a battlefield. These were civilians in a city.
Right.
And not even 10 years later, we're getting people who are like, who cares about 9/11?
Right. Yeah.
Well,
what is that, PC?
It seems to me, in a PC world, you shouldn't be allowed to say that. There should be some serious ramifications there as well.
And God forbid. I should have taken more umbrance with that, but I guess I'm getting desensitized too. But you're right about those things too. But the essential, core of that really significant paragraph, though, was the fact that men in these situations that they have to be in, whether it's military, whether it's sporting environment, whether it's like high pressure finance, corporate, that really high pressure kind of high stakes kind of thing. Police, bomb squads, the SWAT team, all these really high physical aggressive things that firemen, right? All these things. When they have to stop and think if they're being sensitive enough to their fellow fire guy or a police guy or soldier guy who isn't a guy, and they wouldn't have to worry about being sensitive to him if it was actually a real guy.
A police person.
Right. Then, you're removing all that essential muscle memory training and all that testosterone building and all the things that keep them alive and keep them functioning well and
you make
their peak.
You make the training that becomes second nature. You're
short circuiting it.
You're turning that into second guessing, and that gets more people killed.
That's right. It's just not necessary. For what? So you can say you were there. Good for you. Go home, bake an apple pie. I mean, impress me with your apple pie. Then I'll be impressed. Hey, I can shoot a gun better than most men. There's a lot of things that I can do better than most men.
Yeah.
And that makes my husband proud, and that's good enough for me.
And it ticks me off, too, because... yeah.
Right. But do I want to go and make a career out of it just because? No, because I can cook, too, and I can craft, and I can sew, and I can do all that other great stuff women should be able to do, too.
Absolutely.
So, right. Okay. So anyway, C, feminism is inherently illogical. One of the objectives of feminists is to achieve harmony between the sexes by requiring equality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yet... feminism is premised on an unswerving belief in universal inequality. To express this another way, would feminists be content were they to finally achieve universal equality between the sexes? Not likely, and I'll tell you why. To exist, feminism needs inequality in instances of unfairness to women.
Sure.
Without that, there's no feminism. So ultimate equality can never, ever be present or feminism disappears.
Wow.
It perpetuates the unfairness to women or else it dies.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're actually working hard to maintaining.
Right. Wait, this goes back to the unnaturalness of feminism.
Wow.
There's a feminist psychology professor, Carol Gilligan, and she actually showed herself in her book, A Different Voice. Females naturally desire unity and harmony within their social and familial circles. Yet feminists' strident speeches about inequality, separation, and injustice only exacerbate the conditions they deplore.
Well, I can't argue with it. That's exactly what it is.
That's right. Okay.
Wow.
D, feminism does not align with the facts. Fact number 1. These are going to blow you away, too.
Uh-oh.
Males and females are different, and their differences are supplementary. Now, Jacques Derrida, who's a famous philosopher, coined that term. Supplementary means that one cannot exist without the other. That being the case, gender equality is de facto in the natural order. By eliminating this, only eventual destruction to the entirety of social order can result.
Which we're seeing more and more.
Aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Go figure. Okay, fact number 2, and this is a great one. I just love this one. I think I'm going to have this one tattooed on my forehead.
Ooh.
Fact number 2, patriarchy is the universal order, Kevin T. Stein. Listen to this. In advocating social reversal, feminists often point to soft patriarchies as examples of matriarchies. But in a true matriarchy, it requires the following conditions to exist in a society. 1, the line of descent must be traced through the mothers. 2, rights of inheritance must be figured through the mothers. 3, political power must be vested with ruling females. 4, females must have the final say in deciding matters for the community. Okay, if I had a drum roll, give me a drum roll.
No, the only thing I've got is the comedy Badoomja.
Okay. Well, it's a matter of fact, and go look it up for yourselves, people. After 85 years of ethnographic studies, not one matriarchal society has ever been identified by cultural anthropologists.
Whoa.
Ever. They don't exist. They don't work. They'll never be accepted. They don't work. It's just not how things are done. You know, the Amazons were a fictional race. That's it.
Well, and it's funny you bring up Amazons. I was going to a few minutes ago when you were talking there because in every depiction or portrayal of Amazon culture in film and television, it's a patriarchal.
Oh, you mean in the actual Amazon?
Yeah.
Right. Well, of course, in the tribals, sure.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is that fictional race of Amazonian women that use the men as slaves and as, you know, objects of impregnation, and that's it. And they're useless otherwise.
Well, then you can't have that because there's going to be an uprising one day and they're going to be getting on the bus.
Yeah, well, they're going to be an uprising, and that's it. There's going to be anyway because it disturbs the natural order of things. Now, these things are all facts. They've been researched in the highest levels of university.
See, that's probably the key right there.
Yeah. So everybody can go and look these things up for yourself. And these are the facts, people. You know, that's just the way it is. Feminism perpetuates itself, and it can never be resolvable, and there can never be equality. And even if there were equality between sexes, feminism would cease to exist anyway. So it's just a self-perpetuating cycle for its own purposes. Not for anyone else's highest good, for its own purposes. And that's it.
Well, and so here's a question. What other purposes are there aside from Gloria Steinem selling more books?
Let me tell you, like I've always said, I am a woman, and feminism needed to happen when it happened way back. You know, we needed to vote. We needed the ability to, if it was necessary, work to support our families and things like that.
Absolutely.
We needed the right to be able to help during wartime, et cetera, et cetera. You know, but that was it. We needed to break those, you know, things that were holding us back, and that's it. We didn't need to change and upheave and overturn the entire structure of, you know, social and anthropological existence.
No.
You know, we just didn't. If we got wiped out tomorrow by, I don't know, the zombie apocalypse or a great tidal wave or whatever it is.
Genghis Khan.
If we got wiped out tomorrow and there were 3 boy babies and 3 girl babies and they grew up and they had no knowledge of anything except each other, they would grow up and we would re-evolve into a patriarchal society.
It's the natural wiring.
Just the way it did the first time. And that's the way it is. You know, I don't care. You can do your feminist rants for the next 300 years. And the minute that we start over from scratch, it'll go back to how it was in the beginning without your conditioning. Because you can't change the DNA. You can't change the wiring. You can't change the natural order.
Cavemen are cavemen.
Well,
you can't get equality and be a cave person.
No, it just won't ever happen. And that's it. You know, and what really angers me, though, is they use all of this stuff for the double standard.
Yeah.
You know, feminists think they can get away with anything. They don't have to do the work, or they do the work, but they get breaks elsewhere and, you know, all these things. They don't have to protect themselves. They don't have to defend themselves,
No.
because they can get the government to do it for them. They've got a parade and stuff,
And laws.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't like a double standard. I'm very much for accountability. I'm very much for rules. I'm very much for this is the way it is, and that's it. Too bad.
Yeah.
If you're not smart enough to, smile your way out of it, then you're SOL, and that's it. But see, that's what happens when you learn how to be really feminine, too. See, you can.
That's true. You can use that.
Your greatest power lies in your femininity.
That's
not
right.
in your supposed and imagined and invented masculinity.
There you go, gang. You heard it here first. No, yeah, you did.
Yes, you did.
We'll be back in 2 minutes with our final segment.
Down your glasses. White Rum has a new captain. Introducing the all-new Captain Morgan White Rum. 5 times distilled for a smoother taste.
I've been eating Egg McMuffins since 1984. But when I saw Taco Bell made a waffle taco, I figured I would get with the times. So I got a haircut and I got some tighter pants. Lost my flip phone, got a smartphone, even took down my Loverboy poster. Now I'm eating waffle tacos and AM Crunch Wraps, and I just made like $700 on Craigslist.
Move on from your old McDonald breakfast with Taco Bell's exciting new breakfast menu.
In the studio with us today are millions of Americans. Millions, welcome.
Our pleasure.
We're asking millions of Americans to get their children's eyes examined once a year. All in favor of annual eye exams for children 3 and up, say aye.
Aye.
Say, I care means you care.
I care means you care.
Now say, Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
Sally sells she sells. Oops.
Gotcha.
By the seashore.
A public service message of the American Optometric Association.
When you have cable and your picture freezes, you get irritable. When you get irritable, your work suffers. When your work suffers, the wrong man is convicted. When the wrong man is convicted, he has time to think. When he has time to think, he thinks about you a lot. And when he thinks about you a lot, your house explodes. Don't have your house explode. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
At LG, we dreamed of a day when you could rely on the perfect kitchen. We dreamed of a day when a dishwasher wouldn't require any pre-rinsing. When a refrigerator could be uniquely designed for better access and storage. When a washer could save 20 minutes on larger loads. And an oven would take minutes to clean instead of hours. And for you, that day is now.
You've got it locked to Straight Talk Monday at HTLARadio1.com. Yes, we are. We are back, and you are listening to Straight Talk with Kate and Crash on HTLA Radio 1 New York. And be sure to check out our new site at HTLARadio1.com.
Yes, I promise it will be finished soon.
Well, in all fairness, you've been busy with one heck of a lot around here.
I can't wait till Thursday, our new show, Thursday, Home Talk.
Mm-hmm.
See, I get to display my feminine. See, not many people know that I studied interior design for years before I went to film school.
That's true.
So
that's true.
I get to use that now.
I'm looking forward to it because it's something that there's not a whole heck of a lot of them out there in the world of internet radio, and I'm really excited because the same way you bring the awesomeness to Real Talk. I know you're going to bring to this show. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm looking forward to telling them all how you fixed my faucet with zap traps, and it's still good.
Yes, and we'll have that on the Morning Boner.
Oh, that's right. That's our new show, folks.
Ooh.
And I don't want to waste too much time, so I'm running out of time, and I have a couple more points. But we've got a new morning show coming. It's a very brief, like 20 minutes every morning, just to perk you up for the day.
A little quick shot in the face.
That's right. It's called the Morning Boner, and you're going to really love it.
Yeah.
So no PC there, baby.
Nope.
All right. Well, getting back to, the misnomers of feminism. But, you have to understand that feminism is the idea that we can make both sexes equal by focusing solely on the issues of one of them. And that's not plausible. It's not, feminists don't ever talk about the plight of men or their emasculation or their sufferings now in having to deal with feminist women.
No.
It's hard enough for men to deal with feminine women. What the hell? I have a son. I have a son now. He's 2 years old, and I want my son to be a man, a real man. I'm not going to have him growing up confused. Sorry. It's not going to happen.
Well, and the pressure is going to be ridiculous because, even his 13-year-old sister, is making statements and whatnot to him and about him that, he's going to be gay. And
he should go to ballet school
Yeah, she's trying to foster this gender...
No, she calls it gender fluidity now. Now that's the new thing is gender fluidity. So you don't have to be male or female. You can be both whenever you feel like it. You can fluidly go back from one to the other.
It's time for androgyny.
Yeah,
it's just Pat.
Oh, I remember that. Oh, God.
28 years ago, Saturday Night Live.
Sweeney. And she's really a brilliant and enlightened woman, though.
Oh, yeah.
I saw her documentary. She suffered with cancer for a long time.
She's awesome. I love her.
She really is. We'll have more about that, though. Maybe we can get her on the show. What's she doing now? Anyway, okay, back to business. So, listen, it's a grand delusion that anything is different, since the inception of feminism. It's just not. How many times do we have to prove to you, except everything is screwed up? That's the only difference. On the surface, we just keep putting paint on the walls that are crumbling, and they're eventually going to fall down. And this is where we're headed, and I'm telling you right now, if feminism didn't exist, and I'm going to say this right now because I believe this with all my heart.
Let me get the censor beep.
I'm sorry. 9/11 wouldn't have happened. So much stuff wouldn't have happened. We lost all that. We were vulnerable. We've become vulnerable and too concerned with surface issues to care about what really matters, and that's shoring up our homes and our families and our foundation. This country became a great country because our families came first and our values came first. And we put that out, and the world envied us for how we felt. We had the American nuclear family.
Yeah.
It was a mom and a dad and 2 kids and a dog and, and Little League and, PTA and all this stuff and bake sales. And, these are the things that, and okay, church, a lot of people at that time, church, I'm not against it if that's what you want to do. Just don't, make that your whole entire belief system, right?
Your whole being.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, balance is the key to everything, So that's all I ask, balance. Find your reality in balance. That's it. And there's just so many issues. I mean, now 1 in what? Oh, my God, like 1 in every... the number's ridiculous to kids that are born with autism now. 1 in every 200.
1 in 4.
Yeah, now it's like
1
to 4 now.
Yep.
Right. And it's just all these diseases and all these things that we never had back then. We woke up and we lived and we toughed it out and we stuck it out. When things got hard, we leaned on each other. And when things were good, we celebrated each other. And that was it.
That was it.
That was it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, and it leads me to this last point that I've got. And I've said this, and I said this last week, too. It's not about racism. Racism isn't going to disappear, but when we were segregated into different ethnic groups, and even men and women, when they had their own base things, when we weren't the same, when we weren't gender fluid, when we weren't, easily between one or the other, or when, women weren't trying to be men and men weren't trying to appease women. When we each had our own things, we respected each other. Yeah, we're all the same on the inside, but it's our differences that make us valuable to each other.
Right.
And we forget that so much. We just want to be a melting pot, and we just want to have everybody be the same so nobody's better or nobody feels worse than the other person. That's what it's all about. The PC thing is all about making nobody feel bad. Well, how about you make each other feel good?
Unless Harvard and Yale are going to open up their doors to absolutely everybody out there, you're not going to have that.
No,
Sorry.
And it doesn't matter anyway about that. You know why? Because feeling good or bad comes from inside. It doesn't matter.
There it is.
What Joe Schmo next door does, or, Jack Black down the block does, or, doesn't do. You're responsible for your own feelings, your own dreams, your own, I don't care who you are or where you come from. If there's something you want, you have to get off your butt and go get it. And if nobody gives it to you, you have nobody to blame but yourself. Don't blame the government. Don't blame races. Don't blame men for keeping you down if you're a woman. It's just retarded.
It's on
and
you.
I did say retarded. I know that's not a PC word anymore, but I love to say that word because I think it's appropriate. Everybody's thinking now is just retarded. What happened to building? What happened to building yourself and building your environment, building your family, and, taking responsibility for the good and the bad in your life, and moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's it. But again, like I said, when everybody was segregated, when, I used to love and want to go to the Far East and learn all about Asia. I don't have to. I can just go down the block now.
Mm-hmm.
I can go to my store and buy kimchi and do all this kind of stuff. And, I get my Korean films and all my Asian films and all these things, which I am grateful for that, though. But, there's no more mystery to go and traveling and no more desire to go on the Orient Express or anything like when I was younger. No. It's just... when everything is so readily accessible, nothing has any value anymore. No. Everything is diluted. Everything is liquidated. There's just, there's nothing to strive for anymore, nothing to challenge, And it is only the wealthy and the educated because, they understand the value of that and they have the opportunity.
Right.
So they go out and they seek challenges that the rest of us just can't, because they understand that the only thing that matters in life is to keep going and keep discovering and keep challenging.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm with you there.
So.
Well, I think now that we've run 6 minutes over our time.
We want to know what you think. So always, as always, send mail to corporate@HTLAradio1.com.
Lawsuits as well.
Good. Go for it. Yeah, you just go for it. Yeah.
Well, gang, that's it.
That is it. That is it for tonight. And I would like to thank HTLA Radio 1 for keeping us right here, bringing you issues that matter with the people to whom they matter most, and that is you, our listeners.
Absolutely.
And a huge thank you to our sponsors and supporters, and we're nothing without you, our listeners, so we do want to hear from you. Last but not at all least, a huge thank you to my forever everything, my in charge, making it look easy, producer, co-host, and husband, Christopher Crash Jesus Taylor. Stay tuned.
You're welcome.
He will follow up with this tomorrow, I promise. Now, be sure to be here next Monday, Meeps, because you never know who's going to show up on Straight Talk to talk straight. As always, be you, be true, and be fierce forever. Good night.
We are HTLA Radio 1. You will lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. We will add your distinctiveness, your advertisers, and your sponsors to our own. Resistance is futile.